I'm doing my daily TikTok scroll and I come across a video where a plus-size woman walks up to a man on the street and asks, "Would you ever date a big girl?" The man takes a pause and says, "It depends on how big she is. She can't weigh more than me." I scroll again. Another man answers and says, "I would if I was getting paid." I don't understand. Yes, people can have their own preferences and that's totally okay. But it's the blatant disrespect and hate towards plus-size people that is the real issue. These sorts of reactions disappoint me. Now that I've turned 20, I'm starting to think about dating more. But in all honesty, I can't ever imagine myself in a relationship. Pursuing a relationship means allowing others full right to assess my desirability. I keep myself closed off to protect myself from getting hurt. There's always one thought that keeps me from pursuing the people I'm interested in. He would never like a girl like me. Welcome to the first episode of Season 2 of What About Us, the podcast where we discuss intersectionality of eating disorders, identity, white supremacy, and everything in between. I'm your host, Meileen Arroyo, and today's guest is my sister, Jessica Arroyo. Jessica is a student at Portland State University studying psychology and education. Our topic for this episode is the struggles of dating as a plus-size woman. We will be sharing our unfiltered thoughts, dating experiences, societal perceptions of plus-size people, and how they impact how we navigate the dating scene. Welcome, Jessica, to the pod.
Thank you for having me.
Dating as it is hard for everyone, but it's especially hard for individuals and marginalized bodies, such as disabled bodies, bodies of color, LGBTQ plus identities, and plus-size bodies. I don't think people understand what it's like to put yourself in the dating scene as a plus-size person unless you've actually lived it, which is why I wanted to talk to you about this today. We both struggle with dating and come from a background where dating is seen as taboo and is very constricted. Both our culture and also physical appearance has really impacted our perception of dating. With all that being said, Jessica, can you tell me a little bit about your experience with dating as a plus-size Latina?
It's definitely been difficult because of just like the way I grew up and my insecurities about myself and how I perceived myself when I would look at myself growing up and until now. Society as well and my culture have also added to just how I feel about myself and my body, just the comments that people make, and feeling like I'm 25 and I have to hurry up and figure out my life. Most of my friends are getting married, having kids. I'm still in the same place that I was when I turned 18. So I think those things right now are what's making dating difficult.
And how do you think your upbringing, identity, or culture has impacted your dating experience growing up and currently, if you have any specific examples?
Yeah, so one moment that is really significant is when I turned 15. I was obviously a little bit overweight than what a normal 15-year-old would look like. And obviously it was my quinceañera, and my mom took me to a weight loss clinic. And so I had to lose weight during that time in order for me to look beautiful in my dress. So that's obviously something that's my culture and just society in general is in order for you to look beautiful and to become a woman, you have to be some sort of size. So I think that's something that very impacted my life growing up.
Mm-hmm. And adding on to that, I think another thing that I remember growing up is the rules of dating that our parents would have. Specifically, it was you can't date till you're 18. Obviously, it was from a good place of protection, and our parents want us to focus on school and education. But I think those rules definitely did restrict what we did. It kept us to ourselves a lot, and I think the more time we spend to ourselves and just in our own solitude, the more that we enjoy it.
For sure. I definitely think that's also something that's keeping me from starting. It's because I've just been okay with being by myself and being independent and doing what I'm able to do without having someone being with me or having that label of being in a relationship. I feel like people are just used to seeing me like single. It's just like normal, I guess, nowadays. But
yeah. And I think now we're like starting to feel that pressure. I think especially like when we go out to like family functions. I know you get this a lot, but it's the question of like, oh, where's the boyfriend? Are you in a relationship? And people are expecting you to start dating.
Yeah, I think like seeing other people in relationships and like thinking that I'm missing out on something, and the fact that I'm getting older and like people constantly are like, you're 25, you have 5 more years until you're 30, and then I'm just like, okay, like I have to figure out, you know, different parts of my life. I think it's like not normal for people to hear that like you're 25 or you're like in your mid-20s and you haven't been in a relationship. It's been harder for me to be able to feel okay with like talking to someone about my feelings and like being vulnerable with someone else.
For sure. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. I feel like it's very common for people to be in their mid-20s and never have been in a relationship, but it's not something we see represented at all, especially now in social media where a lot of people are getting married very young or having kids very young. And so it definitely like kind of gets to your head. You almost get to the point where you criticize yourself. At what point in your life did you start noticing that your body size was affecting your dating experiences?
Probably when I was like 18 years old. I think I was able to go out a lot more with my friends, that I would try to figure out what I would look good in, like try to, I guess, make myself feel better about myself. And when we would go out, I would just notice that my friends would just be getting way more attention from guys than I would, or like they would constantly have people like come up to them and like try to talk to them, and I would obviously not have that same experience. So I think that's when I really started to realize, okay, maybe it has something to do with my body and the way I look, that I'm just not considered attractive enough.
And you recently decided to step into the world of online dating. What made you take that decision?
Well, I think like one of my closest friends actually pushed me to do it, because she would constantly tell me about like her dates that she would go on with these guys that she would meet on like, you know, Hinge, that she was like, you should try it, maybe it'll surprise you, maybe like it'll help you come out of your shell and be able to like slowly kind of step into the dating pool. At first, I was like very, very not sure if that's something I wanted to do, because of the fact that they only see you through pictures. Eventually, she kind of helped me make my profile. I was like, okay, I'm going to keep it for a week, and then if I don't like it, I'm just going to delete it. But I've been on it for a few months, and like nothing has really happened. I mean, I've talked to a few people here and there, but it's nothing that's been like, you know,
Nothing has evolved.
Yes, nothing has evolved from it.
Yeah.
Currently.
So now let's transition into talking about the stereotypes of fat people and the normalization of fat phobia in our culture, because I think that deeply impacts self-esteem and self-love, which is super important in romantic relationships. What are some social perceptions of plus-size people that you see portrayed in the media?
Definitely that like fat people are considered like unhealthy, not active, lazy, and just overall like ugly. And then like skinny people are like fit, they're active, they're healthy, and they're just like more attractive and beautiful. That's something that I've heard that are like social perceptions that I see in society, like on TV and in movies too.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of those traits and ideas are perpetuated in the medical system and healthcare system, especially with overweight people being inadequately treated or being misdiagnosed or being told that they need to lose weight and that's like the only way to be healthy, which I feel like creates a lot of stigma in society around being fat and like associates being fat with being unhealthy, which I think isn't really a good measurement for health, because like in my situation and in my experience when I was at my lowest weight, I was probably the most unhealthiest I've ever been in my life. And so that idea that you have to be at a lower weight to be healthy, I think creates like a lot of false narratives in people's minds.
And then another one that I've also heard, or that I've also seen like in movies and TV, is that you don't really see like fat people in a love relationship or like love interest.
Mm-hmm. They're almost just kind of like put as a side character. and not really given much character development in stories. And I think growing up and not seeing a lot of plus size people as love interests gives people the idea that fat people are undateable or that they're undesirable, and that in order to be like attractive or be a love interest for someone, they have to do things to change their body.
Yeah. Also, like, same-size relationships, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, having, like, skinny with skinny people and then fat people with fat people. And then if it's, like, mixed together, it's someone is not really in love with the other person, or, you know, like, they have, like, a fetish, or, like, you know, just things like that it's, like, unacceptable for society if, like, two people are not the same size and they're in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. I think another thing too is the idea of curvy versus plus size, and like one being better than the other. I feel like a lot of people don't really understand what both of those terms mean, and to kind of like break it down, curvy is more of like body measurement and specifically has to do with your hips and waist, and then plus size is more of like in terms of clothing size, and it's anything plus a 14 plus is plus size. And I feel like curvy now has become more of a beauty standard or more of like an ideal, and curvy carries more of like a positive connotation and it's not as stigmatized.
Well, I definitely agree with like everything you said about like curvy and plus size. I feel like when people think of Latinas, they just think of curvy. You know, you have to be curvy, you have to have that like big butt, like small waist. It's a positive thing, but it's also like a negative thing if you're not within that like that criteria of look, if you're a Latina, you know, in that sense.
Yeah. Specifically for us being first generation Hispanic and living here in the United States and having like two different beauty standards. There's one beauty ideal for Latinas, and that's like being curvy and having like the hourglass figure. But also growing up on TV, like we saw a whole different beauty standard of that white ideal and being skinny and thin and tall, having a thigh gap. And like growing up as a kid and having those two different beauty standards, you kind of have an internal battle of like, okay, which standard should I go for? Do you remember any movies or TV shows that you watched growing up that kind of reinforced that message that being fat is bad and equates to being ugly?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that specific That's a Raven episode where it's like she designed a dress for like a fashion show, and like the dress, she designed it for her body type, which obviously was not what's considered a size 0, right, in that show. But she had to like make a dress that was like a size 0 for the model that was gonna wear it. But she like was like, no, I want to wear it, it's my dress. And the person who was running the show, the fashion show, was like, no, like, you're not beautiful, like, not in those words, but, you know.
You don't have the look.
You don't have the look. Yeah, exactly. So that is, like, you know, something that's very, for me in my childhood, like, that episode, I will never forget. And it's one that I can, like, vividly remember. And then another one too is Carmen in the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants movie. In her friend group, she's obviously the curvier Latina, and all her friends are like white skinny, right? And like they have the pair of pants that they find and they all try it on. And like one of the lines that she said is like, she says, you think that pair of pants is gonna fit all of this? And she tries on the pants and it does fit. You also see that like that type of message where all of my friends are skinnier than me. I'm never gonna fit in a pair of pants, but it fits me. Like, you know, that also is something that I like remember as well. Not only because of that, but also because she's Latina and she's curvier.
Okay, so putting this all together, how have these stereotypes and social perceptions impacted your own self-image?
Like I mentioned before, just like being the big girl in my friend group was definitely something that like impacted just the way I thought about myself. Just the fact that like I might not ever be attractive to someone because of just the way I look, you know, and like being compared to my friends, I guess. Another thing is also like me like having to buy clothes growing up when I would go to like hangouts with my friends at the mall and stuff, like, and they would want to buy clothes, and they're like, I'm gonna try this on, do you want to try something on? And I'm like, girl, nothing fits me here. So I can't. Or having to like dress older because all the clothes that are for older women come in like plus size sizes.
I like that you bring that up, because I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize as a privilege. I, growing up, never had to experience shopping in the plus size section. Although I still was overweight, I wasn't like considered plus size. And so that's something I will never experience. And I think it's important for people to realize that being plus size comes with a lot of isolation.
Yeah, and like self-image for me was like something I had to like learn how to build up over the years when I was younger, and like being like bullied for my weight and stuff. Like obviously that really affected me and like how I viewed myself. But like I think as I grew up, I just started to figure out what helps me feel better about myself.
Mm-hmm. And how have these stereotypes affected how you navigate dating and present yourself to others?
Yeah, well, I had like one instance when I first started on the dating app where I was talking to someone and I felt like my body was something that had to do with maybe the fact that it didn't like, the fact that it didn't become into something. Like I thought that my body had something to do with it, or maybe just the way I looked, or maybe they like saw me and they were like, she's
never mind.
Never mind. She doesn't look like how she looks in her pictures. And I feel like that's why I'm just so scared to go on a first date, because it's like they see you in pictures, right, that you choose. They talk to you for like weeks, right, and they ask you on this date, but then when they see you, they can like change their mind and they can be like, okay, no, like she's not what I thought she looked like. And I know that like it would just really affect me and maybe prevent me from like figuring out dating in that sense. Yeah. And I think like everything that dating is for me, it always comes down to my body, which I know it's like not something I should do, but I think like my brain is just wired to do that because I've gone through this for so long that it's just like a natural instinct for me to assume that it just always has something to do with my body.
Yeah.
And also just like not wanting to get hurt by someone else when opening up to someone.
Yeah, I like what you said about the rejection piece and how like in your brain is wired to think that if someone rejected you, it's because of your body. And I think that is so valid and so relatable, because one thing that a lot of people say is like, oh, initial attraction is important. The first thing that someone sees is the way you look. We're bound to think that it's because of the way we look. Now in society, like that pressure is put on a lot of people to think about their physical appearance 24/7. And I think also too, like, because we've gone so long without dating, that like the only, like in my brain, it's like I'm not in a relationship because no one finds me attractive. That's the first thing I think about. It's like, oh, I'm not girlfriend material. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure, yeah. Constantly believing that like the only way that you will ever be in a relationship or ever be considered attractive is if you lose weight.
Yes.
If you like go to the gym, if you like eat healthy, if you things like that.
Are there any other insecurities and fears that hold you back from dating?
I think I've realized this now that I've started to like kind of be in the dating pool, is I constantly like convince myself that I just might not be someone's type. No one will ever like me. Maybe they'll like me as a friend, because I'm funny, because I'm like outgoing, because whatever other personality traits I have, but it will never be because I'm attractive. It'll just be because I have a good personality. Like that's also something that I have to like really work on, but it also stems from like my insecurities and my fears about myself, I guess, or letting someone view me in a way that no one has that doesn't already know me.
And are you content with your outcome in dating right now?
Honestly, no. I know that like I still have internal things that I have to work on, like on myself, to really like feel like 100% in this. But, like, this is obviously, like, really new to me still, and I understand that, like, it will take some time for me to fully be 100% comfortable with dating, like, as a plus-size woman.
For sure. What do you wish more people knew about the reality of dating while being plus size?
It's just not easy because of just, like, the constant judgment. Not only from society, but sometimes from people that they know, from family members, from people that people's words hurt, people's actions hurt others without them knowing. Someone could really take that to heart.
What would you tell someone who is also in the same position as you?
I would say that it takes time. You shouldn't have to rush or like let others pressure you to start something that you're not fully comfortable with. Only you know when is the right time to start, and to let someone get to know you like in a vulnerable way, in a vulnerable state, to show confidence, to learn how to love yourself. I know that that's something that like people say all the time, but I do believe that it's 100% true.
Thank you, Jessica, for joining me in today's episode. I am so excited to continue this podcast with new topics and stories for season 2. Check out the description for information on how to be a guest, and follow my creative account at @inmaysmind_. That is at INMEISMIND_ for more podcast updates and creative content. A special thanks to the artist Holizna, creator and producer of the song Warm Fuzz, which you hear in the beginning and end of this episode. Before I go, one thing to take away from this episode is that being fat does not equate to being undateable, unlovable, or unattractive. Your body is not a measurement of your value as a romantic partner. That's all for today. Your host, Meileen, signing off.